$1,000 every Monday into my parents' joint account. Not because they asked, they didn't even know it was me. The deposits came from a company called Family Support Services LLC, which they assumed was some kind of government assistance program they'd accidentally qualified for. I could have told them it was me. Could have explained that my software company had taken off, that I was now worth more than they'd ever dreamed. But I remembered too well the years of being the disappointment, the child who chose computer science over joining the family restaurant business. Restaurants are in our blood, Oliver. Dad would say while my younger brother Michael nodded eagerly beside him. 4 generations of success and you want to play with computers? So I kept quiet about my success, about the millions I'd made, about the companies I'd built. Instead, I helped anonymously, watching as those weekly deposits helped ease their financial stress. The family restaurant, struggling post-pandemic, slowly stabilized. They were able to hire more staff, upgrade equipment, even start renovations. I still visited the restaurant every Sunday for family dinner, enduring the usual comments. "Still doing your computer thing, Oliver?" Mom would ask while praising Michael's dedication to expanding the restaurant. "When are you going to get a real job?" Dad would add, not realizing that my computer thing was now worth 8 figures. I took it all in stride, happy to see them less stressed about money, pleased that Michael was getting his chance to shine. But everything changed last Sunday when I overheard them planning the family vacation. "The cruise will be perfect," Mom gushed, showing Michael and his wife the brochure. 2 weeks in the Mediterranean, all expenses paid. Thanks to that blessing from Family Support Services, we can finally take the trip of our dreams. I waited for them to mention my invitation. Waited through the entire dinner as they discussed excursions, cabin arrangements and flight bookings. Finally, I had to ask, "When are we going?" The silence that followed was deafening. Mom suddenly became very interested in her plate. Dad cleared his throat. "Well, son," he began, his tone condescending, "this is really more of a working vacation. We'll be visiting traditional restaurants, getting ideas for the business." "I could still come," I offered, thinking of how I could actually afford to upgrade all their cabins to suites. "I have vacation time saved up." Michael shifted uncomfortably, but Dad's face hardened. "Oliver, let's be honest. You chose not to be part of the family business. This trip is for people who are committed to our legacy. We don't want you there. You'll just be bored with all the restaurant talk. We don't want you there." The words echoed in my head, bringing back memories of every time I'd been excluded, every dismissal of my choices, every comparison to Michael's dedication. Mom must have seen something in my face because she tried to smooth things over. "Maybe next time, dear. When we do a regular vacation." I stood up slowly, my decision already made. "Next time," I repeated softly. "Right." That night I made some calls. First to my lawyer, then to my accountant. By morning, everything was in place. 24 hours later, my parents would learn exactly who had been keeping their dream alive for the past year. But by then it would be too late to take back those words. "We don't want you there." Sometimes the hardest lessons come from the people we try hardest to help. Monday morning arrived, and for the first time in a year, there was no $1,000 deposit in my parents' account. Instead, they received an official letter from Family Support Services LLC. I sat in my home office, watching the security cameras I'd installed at the restaurant as my father opened the mail. His face went from confused to pale as he read the letter explaining that their assistance program had been terminated, effective immediately. But that wasn't all. The letter also included a detailed accounting of every deposit made over the past year, $52,000 in total. And at the bottom, a simple revelation. Family Support Services LLC was a subsidiary of Phoenix Digital Solutions, owned by Oliver Chen, their son. My phone started ringing at 9:47 a.m. I let it go to voicemail. Then came the texts, increasingly desperate. "Mom, Oliver, please call us immediately." "Dad, son, we need to talk." "Michael, bro, what's going on? Mom and Dad are freaking out." At 10:15 a.m., my lawyer sent the second wave of documents. These outlined the terms of the business loans my parents had taken out to renovate the restaurant, loans that, unknown to them, I had purchased through another of my companies. By 10:30 a.m., they learned that their mysterious angel investor was actually their eldest son, the one who played with computers. I finally answered my phone at noon, just as my parents were receiving the final document. A breakdown of their cruise expenses which they'd put on a credit card backed by, surprise, my weekly deposits. Hello. I kept my voice neutral. Oliver. My father's voice cracked, all his usual authority gone. Son, we need to talk about this. About what, Dad? About how you didn't want me on the family vacation. Or about how you've been living on my support for the past year while continuing to treat me like a disappointment. We didn't know. Mom had taken the phone. Oliver, if we'd known it was your money. That's exactly the problem, I cut in. You only care now that you know it's my money. Would you have invited me if you'd known I was the one keeping the restaurant afloat? Silence. The loan payments are due next week, I continued calmly. The cruise deposits are non-refundable. And Family Support Services LLC no longer exists. Good luck with your working vacation. You can't do this. Dad had the phone again. We're family. Family. I laughed softly. You made it very clear yesterday that I'm not part of the family business. Not part of the family legacy. Not wanted on the family vacation. Michael's voice came through. I was on speakerphone now. Bro, come on. They didn't mean it like that. Really? How did they mean it then? Because, we don't want you there, seems pretty clear to me. The silence that followed was heavy with realization. They were finally seeing me, not as the disappointment who chose computers over restaurants, but as the successful businessman who'd been quietly supporting them all along. The restaurant. Mom's voice was small. We'll lose everything. Maybe, I agreed. Or maybe you'll finally learn to see value in paths different from your own. You have 24 hours to decide. I hung up, turned off my phone and poured myself a drink. Sometimes the hardest part of teaching someone a lesson is watching them learn it. The next 24 hours were a masterclass in how quickly pride can crumble when reality hits. My security cameras showed my parents sitting in the darkened restaurant long after closing, heads bent over paperwork. Michael paced, making frantic calls to banks that wouldn't help. Mom cried. Dad aged 10 years in one night. I watched it all from my home office, remembering every dismissive comment, every missed achievement, every time they'd chosen to celebrate Michael's conventional path while dismissing my computer thing. At exactly 11:59 a.m. the next day my father called. Oliver. His voice was different, humbled perhaps for the first time in his life. We need to talk. Not over the phone. Can you come to the restaurant? I agreed, but on my terms. I'll be there at 2 p.m. Have everyone present. Walking into Golden Dragon felt different this time. The restaurant where I'd grown up, where I'd washed dishes and waited tables through high school, where I'd been told I was throwing away my heritage by choosing technology over tradition, it seemed smaller now. They were all seated at our usual family table. Dad looking exhausted, Mom her eyes red from crying, Michael and his wife both unusually quiet. The lunch service had been cancelled, the closed sign hung in the window. I sat down, placing my laptop on the table. Nobody spoke. Finally, Dad broke the silence. Son, we were wrong. About what specifically? I kept my voice neutral. About not wanting me on the vacation? About dismissing my career choices? Or about taking money from a government program, without questioning it? Mom flinched. All of it, she whispered. We were so focused on tradition, on what we thought success should look like, that you missed actual success sitting right in front of you, I finished. Do you know what Phoenix Digital Solutions is worth now, Dad? The company you mocked as my computer thing? He shook his head. I opened my laptop, turned it around. On the screen was my company's latest valuation, $86 million. Michael let out a low whistle. His wife grabbed his arm, eyes wide. I bought this building last year, I continued calmly. I own the entire block now. I've been your landlord for months, keeping the rent artificially low. Those government deposits helped, but they weren't what saved this restaurant. I was. Why didn't you tell us? Mom asked softly. Would it have mattered? Would you have suddenly respected my choices if you knew I was rich? Because that's not respect, that's opportunism. Dad stood up suddenly, and for a moment I thought he was angry. Instead he walked to the wall where generations of family photos hung. In the center was his pride and joy, for generations of Chin family restaurateurs. He took it down, hands shaking. I was wrong, he said, voice breaking. I was so focused on preserving this legacy that I couldn't see you were building your own. A better one. He set the photo on the table between us. Can you forgive us? I looked at their faces, my family, flawed and proud, and finally seeing me clearly. The cruise leaves in 3 weeks, I said finally. I hear the Mediterranean is beautiful this time of year. Mom's eyes widened. You mean? I mean I've upgraded all your cabins to suites. Added a few extra excursions. And yes, I'll be coming too if you want me there. Really want me there, not just my money. The tears came then, real ones, not manipulative ones. Even Michael was wiping his eyes. But things will be different now, I continued. No more dismissing choices just because they're different. No more measuring success by a single yardstick. And no more pretending that tradition can't evolve. Dad nodded, reaching for the family photo. But I stopped him. Leave it, I said. It's time to take a new one. One that shows all paths to success, not just the expected ones. Today, if you visit Golden Dragon, you'll see 2 photos on the wall. One shows 4 generations of traditional restaurateurs. The other shows a modern family business empire, the restaurant now franchised across 3 states and the tech company that made it possible. And every Sunday you'll find us all there at the family table, the restaurant owner, the tech CEO, and parents who finally learned that success comes in many flavors. As for that Mediterranean cruise, it became our new family tradition. Turns out watching the sunset from a luxury suite is a pretty good place to bridge generational gaps. Sometimes the hardest lessons lead to the sweetest endings. And sometimes, just sometimes,